Hey everyone. So it's about 11 o'clock a.m. or 11 a.m. on this Tuesday, September, I think it's 23rd, September 23rd, 2025. And yes, I am walking. You can probably tell by the way I'm recording this. I am walking to the bus stop at the Walmart where I used to work. Mainly because the place that I'm at for the third season in a row, distributing center, if you will, for certain departments, and the one I was in included, they offered VTO. Now, this wasn't as early as it was before, but it was, I guess you could say at a more appropriate time. This is what they would consider part-time hours, if you will. Basically, get off when you're supposed to go to lunch. And that's what I did. And I'm not the only one that took it. It's just like in fact, the person I was working in a trailer with in stripping said that normally they wouldn't do it, but if there's any opportunity they can just go home and spend time with family, they're going to take it. Especially since they live in the city next to mine, or town next to mine, if you know what I mean. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about, though. What I'm here to talk about is, I wouldn't say too much of a follow-up on my AI video that I did, audio video that I did, but more of a kind of a, it's kind of like a what-if, scenario. Kind of like a what-if, or basically, not just a what-if, but asking the question of, why didn't they go there? Why didn't they go there? Why didn't they try that? And what I'm talking about is the fact, and I showed various examples of that in my previous audio video on AI, and I'll show it here. What I'm talking about is, you have certain shows, you have certain shows and everything where the beings or certain characters have powers, or given powers, if you will. And you always wonder to yourself, well, it's great that they're doing this, it's great that they can do that, but why haven't they tried this? Or why haven't they tried that? Those are always two questions that people wonder. And probably the biggest question of why didn't they try this or why didn't they try that when it comes to some of these characters is fusion, merging, if you will. And what I mean by that is basically, when you look at, let's say, the Owl House, if you will, and we know the main love interest between Amity and Luz, right? Well, Luz is a Titan witch, at the end of the series. And we know she's growing into that capacity. She's growing into that capacity. We know she had to potentially, well, not potentially, but she did have to basically die, sacrifice herself to be reborn, as her true form, and stuff like that. We know that. We know this. And hold on for a sec. Like I said, we know that in the end, she kind of dies, sacrifices herself to be reborn as a Titan witch, if you will. But anyway, we know that during all this, that as her powers grew and developed, that not only did she discover new abilities and stuff, but there was one ability that I'm sure fans, hardcore fans, themselves, of the series were always wondering. And that is, why didn't they do fusion with her and Amity, or her and, I guess you could say the mentor friend, the witch friend of hers, Eden. Why didn't they do it with them? Because when you think about it, seeing a fusion, a merger of Luz and Amity, or Luz and Eden, if you will, would have been, actually kind of fun to see. Because you could have both personalities meld into one, and kind of see whether it's going to be a more, equal, merging, or if there might be a bit of a slight advantage from, either one or the other, in personality and in mentalness. But it would have been nice to see. It would have been nice to see. And the one thing I mentioned in the AI video, that people do have fun with, they do have fun with, is the ability to take screenshots, like, Luz and Amity together, and basically say, basically say in the prompt, hey, let's merge them together. Let's fuse them into one and see what happens. And the end result's pretty good. The end result is pretty good. But we never saw that. We never saw that happen in the series. And, again, we never saw that in the series. And it was a lost opportunity, in my opinion. A very much lost opportunity. Because I'm sure, again, like I said, even hardcore fans are wondering, why didn't they do it? Why didn't they go and, make that moment happen? It would have been so cool to see and everything. And, one can assume that pretty much, the creators behind the Owl House were like, yeah, the reason they didn't do it is mainly because people would have expected it, and it would have been too obvious. That's why they didn't do it, because they would have expected it, it would have been too obvious. And, they probably didn't want to go down that trope, down that, trope direction, if you will. The same with, giving, Luz the power to shapeshift into anyone or anything she wants. It'd have been too predictable and too, I guess you could say, gimmicky to do, because we've seen it done before. But still, that's why people like to see it, because, they've seen it done before, but they like to see different takes on it. And the Owl House could have had that. They really could. They really could have had that. Another series, anime-wise, that I felt could really benefit from this, and here's the thing about One Piece. It is still going. So there's still plenty of time for them to do this. Still plenty of time. But, the one thing they have yet to try, and I don't know if they tried it in the mangas, or recent mangas that will be adapted soon into animation, or basically, whether or not, they just feel like it's too predictable, it's too obvious. And that is if they had the Straw Hat crew, I think that's what they're called, Straw Hat crew, basically find a devil fruit, because that's what these things are, that gives them powers, and one of them gives them the power to fuse. You have to wonder if maybe, that's an idea that's still floating around, and if in the first one originally pitched and everything, they just felt like it would be too predictable. But you have to wonder if that mindset, still remains even to this day. If you will. You got to wonder if the mindset still remains even to this day about not doing it. Because I think over time, the difference of creators, the difference of not creators, but writers and all that, that all changes over time. And when it changes over time, different ideas can flow about. So like I said, even though One Piece is still going, as crazy as it sounds, there's still time for it to potentially happen. I mean, there's even stories, fan fiction stories, in which people have actually had Nami and Nico fuse into one, calling themselves Nami Nico, or Nico Nami, or whatever. But it's not done like what you would see as an example here that I created through the Helluva AI. No. Instead, it's done to basically Nico melting into goo in the tub, thanks to a devil fruit giving her the ability to do so. And then Nami basically joining in, basically soaking in her melted form and then melting within her, and that's becoming one big tub full of goo. That's a mixture of both of them, and the end result is a fusion. But again, like I said, One Piece is still going, so there's still a chance you could see that potentially happen. It's just not just a matter of where it's going to happen, but when. and if. Those are actually the two main questions of when and if it will happen. Because one would think it should have happened a long time ago, but it didn't. It didn't. But still, time is there. Time is still, time is still there. Time is still on their side to make, this decision. Make this possibility a reality. If you know what I mean. Another example, and I think I can kind of show it here, is Harley and Ivy. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy from the Harley Quinn show, and if not, comics in general. And to me, especially with the Harley Quinn show, you want to talk about, and I do apologize for that. That was a Walmart truck going by. But, you talk about in the Harley Quinn show, probably the best opportunity to make that happen. You have a variety of opportunities to where it potentially could happen, but they never do it. I mean, yeah, they did pull the trigger on making Harley and Poison Ivy in a lesbian couple, if not married couple. They pulled the trigger on that. But, the truth is, they didn't go, as far as they needed. They didn't go as far as they needed. And yeah, it is an adult animated show on streaming. And obviously they realize kids are still going to watch it, unfortunately. But again, the opportunity, I think was there. And if they're going to have another season, which we're not really sure of yet, but if they're going to have another season, in my opinion, they need to capitalize on this opportunity in that season. They need to. They need to capitalize and say, look, this is what we're doing. And that truck was not supposed to U-turn. I do not know why it did that. Oh, yeah, I can U-turn, I guess, but I didn't think trucks like that could U-turn. I was just looking at a semi-truck U-turning. I don't think it was supposed to do that, even if it had the okay to do it from a sign and all that. But anyway, though, like I said, we don't know if there's going to be a fifth season or not, but if there is, then there's no doubt in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, that they should take that fifth season, and if it's the final season, oh no, wait, it was a fifth season. There was a fifth season. What am I talking about? I mean, this is what happens when you're walking and recording, you're looking around, seeing what's going on, you're getting a bit distracted. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. Like, if there's another season, and there is rumor of another season, a sixth season. That's what I was trying to say. Not a fifth one, but a sixth one. If there is a sixth season in the works, that's what I was trying to say. Basically, the opportunity, in my opinion, is there, for them to take. The opportunity is there for them to take and make their own. I mean, think how the fans of Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy as a couple, of not just the show but as the comics, imagine how they'll react, if that moment was to happen in the show, where basically Poison Ivy discovers some kind of power that allows her and anyone she wants to fuse together into one. Hold on for a second. Folks. Sorry about that, folks. There was someone lying on the ground, just resting, I guess, in the shade because of the heat and all that. But anyway, like I said, imagine, fans' reactions if that happens. Imagine fans, reaction, if that moment was to happen, and everything. And you have basically Harley and Poison Ivy fused together. Because again, like I said, look, think of the story they, write with that, where Ivy, I should say, discovers some kind of power that allows her to fuse with whoever she desires. And in this case, it could be Harley. Imagine if that was to happen in the show. Imagine if that was to happen in the show in the new season, if they're going to do a new season. Imagine that. Imagine, the reaction, it could get, from fans, the positive reaction. To see this fused version that could go by the name of Ivy Quinn or Harley Poison or Poison Harley, whatever the case might be. That would be huge. That would be huge. But and again, if they do another season, if they do a sixth season, then they have the opportunity right there in front of them to make it happen. And go from there. Now, it's not the only show. Another show that I basically showed as an example in the AI video was the Adventure Time spinoff, Cake and Fionna and Cake, whatever it's called. And to me, when I look at that, to me, it's obvious they had so many opportunities to do it. I mean, just like Adventure Time, they had Cake use her shape-shifting powers in one of the episodes to basically become clothing, for Fionna. So to me, it's like, well, if you're going to have, Cake do that and everything, you're going to have Cake do that, then why not have them go all the way? I mean, I guarantee you one thing, that had they made the decision to do so, they could have had Jake and Finn, fused together. And I'm not just talking, Jake, being Finn's, armor, pseudo armor and all that, or his clothing, or whatever the case may be. I'm talking basically like complete fuse, become someone totally different that comprises of both. They obviously had the opportunity to do it, but they never did. Here, in my opinion, they had that opportunity with Cake and Fionna. And as you can see, even though a lot of these, and I'm going to say it right now, were created by Helluva AI, even though they were created by that, you can see that the end result could have been, very unique in its presentation. And I think honestly that, they had an opportunity, they just never witnessed it. They never did. But to me, I think it would have been great to see. I think it would have been great to see that become a reality. And it would have breathed new life, in my opinion, into the show. It would have breathed new life into the show itself. It would have breathed new life into the show itself. But again, they didn't do it. They didn't pull the trigger. What's crazy is, when I asked the question, why didn't they do that? Why didn't, they go there and all that? When I asked that question of why didn't they do that? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they go there? And when I asked that question, it's because of the fact that these shows that I showed you, if you will, are just prime examples of what could have been, what they could have created, what they could have done, and everything. And here's what's funny. One of the shows that I'm a fan of, and anybody's a fan of, is the Nickelodeon show Secret World of Alex Mack. That's right, Secret World of Alex Mack, which is celebrating 31 years this year. Secret World of Alex Mack. During the first couple of seasons, yeah, we noticed she had a lot of powers, but the most popular one was her being able to melt into a puddle of liquid, right? Well, one thing we noticed when she would do this is that it also gave her the ability to fuse, if you will, with other elements of water. And by doing so, increase that water's mass, if not her own. We saw this when she basically wanted to get even with a bit of a bully at a pool party. She merged with the water and basically used it to, get even with this guy, or this bully, if you will. And then in another episode, I don't know if it was the first season or second season, but I know the pool one was in the first or second season. She decided to help a friend of the family, I should say, against Danielle Anton, the main antagonist, if you will, of the show. She's able to help a friend of the family basically get the best of Anton, if you will, by using her morphing ability to morph into liquid and increase the mass of the water, in this statue-like water fountain, if you will. And basically, one can assume she remained that way for at least the duration of the presentation of the party, basically being one with the water and, and just, letting herself be. One could assume that. Like I said, one could assume that. Now, what's interesting, though, is when you got into later seasons, her abilities, of course, as she grew, they grew. As she got older, they evolved. They got stronger. And it got to a point that she can now, in later seasons, morph, not just as morph, melt, if you will, not just itself as a liquid, and be able to squeeze through tighter spaces than usual. But she was now able to melt and morph inanimate objects, along with her, like books and stuff like that, but also people. That's right. She can morph, melt, people along with her into puddles of goo, which in a way is a type of fusion, or merging. It's a fusion, merging, kind of thing in a very unique manner. Basically, by morphing them along with her, they become a massive puddle of ooze. They become a massive puddle of ooze, and she can basically, with her in control, slither around wherever they need to go. The only thing they never did with it, though, of course, is a true fusion. Basically, you allow her powers to evolve and get stronger. You allow her powers to get, stronger as she gets older. Why not have it to where not only she can do this, have that ability, but then also take it to the next level by saying, hey, whoever I decide to fuse with or morph with into a puddle, I can actually fuse with them if I want to. I can become, we together can become someone new, someone different. And that would have been unique to see. But they never did it. Again, the closest they came was having her morph and melt into a puddle of goo, if you will, to help, get around certain things, or just be, very mischievous and have fun, like she and her sister did at the end of one episode. They're basically hugging each other playfully, and she decided, hey, I'm going to just morph us into a puddle of goo and, get us home that way. And they're just giggling along the way and all that because it's fun, just being together as one and, basically being together as one. But what's interesting about the giggling from both is it's not a separate giggle. It's a united giggle. It's a united laugh. It's one laugh. Because basically they've merged as one. They've become one, if you will. So, yeah, they had the ability, to go in that direction. They just never did. But like I said, the closest was, her being able to morph other people into a puddle of liquid along with her. That was the one, I guess you could say, silver lining out of it all. That was the one silver lining. That, she could morph, everybody else into a puddle of liquid, along with her in later seasons. But, yeah, again, the reason I bring this up, like I said, is because they had so much opportunity, so much potential, to do, to do these things, to go in these directions, but yet they never did. They never took that chance. And I think if they would have took that chance, they would have had something special. You know what I mean? They would have had something great. They would have had something that would have people talking for years. I wouldn't say generations, but for years. Basically pointing back to the fact that, you remember the episode where this happened, where this merger fusion happened and all that. They did have people talking. And like I said, they could still have people talking, with certain, franchises like One Piece, if it finally decides to do that. Or maybe even with, the new season of Harley Quinn. Because imagine what people's reaction will be if that happens. If those moments happen. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and talk about, the possibilities of why, they didn't do, why they didn't go, in this direction, why they didn't do this, why didn't they do that, I just wanted to come on and talk about it, give you my thoughts on it overall, and, that's about it, really, that's really about it, but, let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Let me know how you feel about this, about the subject overall. Do you think I'm onto something? Do you think it would have worked? And would you have liked to have seen it? Do you think, basically, the likes of, let's say, Harley Quinn and even One Piece still have a chance to go in that direction? Let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are on it, guys. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video, like the video, like I said. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the first link to go to my new fourth wall store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. I got one thing up there right now, but there will be more to come. And click on the last link to go to my original Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, that's all I'm going to say for now. And until next time, again, give me your thoughts. And I am out. Take care. God bless. I'm out.